Welcome to Waiting on the Trade, a comics book club for people who can't keep up with monthly comics. I'm Matt Ledger.
I'm Patrick Fitzgerald Fleck.
And I'm Suzanne Payne.
This month, we're talking about Supper Club, a charming teenage slice of life drama with an emphasis on the slice. This book was written and drawn by Jackie Morrow, with editing and color assists by Ali Pipitone. Now, in case you need a refresher, Supper Club is the story of Nora, Lily, and Iris, three seniors at Seaside High. When the girls figure out their senior schedules don't match up, they create a food-focused club that gives them an excuse to hang out and break bread together. However, as the girls' senior year unfolds, they face a series of challenges that even the best comfort food can't quite alleviate. Suzanne, welcome back to the podcast. How's it going?
Oh, it's going, October.
Yeah, spooky season.
Soon to be knocking.
Yeah, I know. Then it's a turkey season.
Yeah.
Emmy's been singing songs about Halloween, and she makes up her own, like, "Oh, it's spooky, spooky Halloween song, spooky Halloween song."
That's how they all go, so it's fine.
Yeah.
Basically,
That's the gist.
So, but yeah, it's going.
You brought us this wonderful comic called Supper Club. How did you find this comic? How did you choose it for us to read for the podcast this month?
So I like to try to find a female-focused or centered comic. And that's what like my first thing is. So when it was coming time for me to choose, I started to Google female made or female led comics because obviously that's the best way to find stuff.
Sure.
And I found the graphic novel Mismatched, which is Jane Austen, right? And then Simon's like, "I'll look too." So Simon is actually the one who found
You
it
found it.
and brought it to me. And he's like, "Hey, this is like a food-based one. It looks like it's about 3 girls. This could be an interesting one. It's available at the library." And so, like, that's like the initial way of how we found it. And at the same time, I had also found those 2 others that I shared with you guys, the Wolf Pitch one, and then I forget what the other one is called now, but I read both of them. So I
Okay.
read all 3 of these, and I had sent them to you guys, and Matt was more vocal about which one he preferred.
I think I had two that I was into.
Yeah.
I don't remember what the second one was. I don't think it was the Jane Austen adaptation one, though. That did look
No.
semi-interesting.
Well, and so that was literally the Jane Austen adaptation one was literally released like the week I started looking. So it's a brand new one.
Oh, okay.
It's not in the libraries yet. I could really only find it on Amazon, and then like second or half price books said that it also had it, but it wasn't available like for digital download at all yet either. And
Well, that's
I'm like,
weird. Huh.
okay. Um, but like all of the libraries, because we usually go through the libraries to see what we can borrow, and
Yeah.
all of them said that they had it on pre-order.
I wonder if
So
I was looking at the right one. I feel like I was just looking at like the Marvel Illustrated version of Emma from like
oh,
a
maybe
while
you
ago. So I
were.
might not have even been looking at the right
Yeah.
one.
So the Mismatched focuses on a male protagonist.
Oh, that's right. I did find that one. That one did
Yeah.
look interesting. That one might have been the second one that I liked actually.
Yeah. So,
Okay.
but yeah, that one's hard to find. But then when I did sample a few of them and reading the other two along with this one at the same time, like I think we made the right choice as to
Okay. I
which
was gonna
one to
ask you,
do.
like, did we do it? Did we pick the right one? So glad that we did.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I guess generally, how did you find it? Did you enjoy the book? Did you get what you wanted out of it?
Well, we found it via library search. Right. So,
No, 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 not how did you find it? Sorry. How did you feel about it?
yeah.
We don't need to
How
relitigate.
yeah. How did I find it in a sense of reading it?
Did you enjoy it?
I did. Whereas some of the other ones that I've read with you guys and discussed, I've said like it's left me wanting more so that I could understand the characters better. In this one, I wanted more because I wanted to see the characters more and I wanted to like go through what they were going through in different ways too. Like kind of wanted there to be like little things where you could go through and see a little bit more about Nora when this was going on, or a little bit more about Iris with how this was going on. But I overall really liked the characters and the progress that we got to see and the different things that we got to be involved with, but not actually get everything about.
Yeah, I think it did a good job of setting up a bunch of, I don't know, likable teen characters who get into situations that are interesting.
Yeah. And they weren't
Yeah,
like
I enjoyed it.
they weren't stereotypes.
No,
Like
yeah.
they're characters that you could have seen or characters that you can connect to in some way. But like I think when we did like Rat Queens, right? Those were stereotypical characters that you would see. Whereas these are just normal people.
A stereotypical bearded dwarf woman.
No, but you know what I mean. Like she was the dwarf
Yeah,
woman, so
no.
she was all you know what I mean in that
Yeah, like
regard.
slice of life is definitely like the genre I would call this. Another comics writer that I read a lot, David Harper, also calls them like hangout comics, where it's just like you're just hanging out. You've got like a bunch of friends there on the page, and you're just kind of hanging out with them. Like that's what's
Yeah.
going on. And like I don't know, I dig those.
Yeah. Was there like one of the three main girls that you connected with?
I was thinking about that beforehand, and I think that I am a Lily person, if I had to say so. You said something about like they're not all stereotypical, and I feel like Lily might be the one who does kind of fall into the like stereotypical trap a little bit of like she's the Asian girl who's into video games and programming, and like her parents are like
Overprotective.
overprotective. Yeah, which like I
Yeah.
don't none of that came off as like rote to me. I thought it was all done very well, but I could see someone making that
Yeah.
point.
Well, and I think that the reason why it doesn't feel stereotypical to you is also because of an understanding of like the culture that goes into like people who come from an Asian background. Like even though stereotypical tends to be bad, like there is a big emphasis on being successful and being involved in your children's lives that sometimes is not the same as people from other cultures.
Who's your favorite?
Probably Nora. Just her vibe.
Yeah.
I enjoy it. Yeah. But she
Alright.
plays clarinet, which is not a cool instrument. So
I mean, no, but it's not
Clarinet's a
supposed to be a cool
beautiful
instrument,
instrument.
right?
But it's so beautiful. I mean, for me, I definitely vibe with Nora. Not only the music thing, but the high functioning anxiety and sometimes not high functioning anxiety. And
Mhm.
like I know when she starts having her panic attacks, like in my lifetime, I've had 4 panic attacks. And the way that it's like shown and like described and like how it's drawn is very much how they can feel for the person who's experiencing them. And just like the whole anxiety of like, what am I going to do? Like, where are my friends going to go? Are people going to judge me? Like, that is very much my life a lot of the time.
I have like 3 or
So,
4 things I think I wanna unpack within what you were talking about with Nora there. I think we'll take it
yes.
in reverse and start with
Okay.
the panic attacks. Because I think in a comic where a lot of the pages are very like well illustrated, but like kind of I would say conventional if that makes sense.
Yeah.
The panic attacks are illustrated really interestingly, like you were talking about, where like the colors
Yeah.
kind of break down, the panels break a little bit.
That's
There's
actually the page I have open is the
yeah,
panic attack at the test.
like there's a lot of use of like just heard this term on a podcast today, but like emotional color as opposed to most of the rest of the book is well, I don't know if I'd go with that actually. There's a lot of emotional color in the book, but it's used very well in that sequence where I'm specifically in the sequence where she and Lily are in the bathroom right now. And Nora's just kind of like sitting with her hands on her knees, like under the sink. And I think that sequence, and then the balloons are like reversed too, so that the lettering's white and the balloons are black. Like that whole sequence is really well done, and I think probably the most like visually interesting stuff in the book.
Yeah, and I mean, like, you have the outline of the other characters, You have, like, the outline of, like, the auxiliary characters. So, like, she obviously does not care about them. She's only focused on herself. But then you have, like, the really intense black lines, but then you have blue and red underneath it that make it seem unstable.
Yeah,
So,
it's
like, you
like
can
looking
see
at a
that.
weird like 3D image that's not quite coalescing, right?
Yeah, in which that, like, you can't focus on what the actual thing is.
Yeah, I actually didn't even pay much
It's
attention to those outlines of the other like girls in the bathroom there. That is a good touch. I'm glad you brought that
Yeah,
up.
well, and then if you do the page before, when she's in the hallway, the, like, first time that she sees, like, the people and she's trying to get through them, they have more, features. And
Yeah.
then in the next bit, they have less features. And then in the next bit, they have even less. Like, that's kinda cool. I don't know if that's the actual meaning behind it, but it's interesting to see it and be able to take it that way.
Okay, so second thing, like, so Nora has her panic attacks multiple times throughout the book. She goes to the hospital. She ends up getting a rock, and that's like how she deals with her panic attacks. And that was just like really unsatisfying to me. But I guess hearing that you're a person who's been through that, like, how did the treatment or lack thereof for Nora's panic attacks feel to you? Because, like, to me, it felt like no one really took them seriously except for maybe like Lily, but maybe I'm wrong.
I mean, the nurse that's talking to her too also, like, kinda gives her some comfort. And I think what the hardest thing is with panic attacks is that you physically feel it so strong. So, like, the first one I had was at soccer, and, like, we were running drills and something else happened, and then all of a sudden, like, my whole body was shutting down, as was, like, my brain. And, like, as that's happening, like, you literally feel like you're dying, but there's not always, like, a physical thing actually happening with your body. So, like, to think of it as there possibly being, like, a medication or something, like, physically wrong going on, like, there sometimes isn't any way to resolve it. For me, the best things that have, like, brought it down is by talking to someone.
Okay.
And, like, it would be interesting to see if she continued with this and if we saw a little bit more, like, it's kind of like her starting point of having a self-soother, and that's something that we do in school right now. We have what's called social emotional learning going on, and it talks about how you can do steps A, B, C to get yourself in a better place. Because I feel, at least for me, my panic attacks have come from when I feel out of control. Like, I had one right before a concert, and literally what I needed was to be put in a space that was quiet and have someone, like, talk me down to the point where now my body was back to regulation.
Okay. I was gonna ask you like when you say steps A, B, C, like what those are, but that's kinda is that kinda usually that sort of thing where it's like just get you into a space that's quiet, comfortable, potentially familiar, and then with is it a familiar person to talk you down? Can it be anyone?
Um, for me, it's always been someone who is closer to me. So when I had that it was at the previous school I worked at, it was like my best friend teacher and then the guidance counselor.
Okay.
So, yeah, and I mean, the whole thing with anxiety attacks really comes to a lot of mental health stuff too. I was not mentally taking care of myself at my previous school. And so I needed someone to, like, sit down with me, and it's a lot of, like, "It will be okay. This is what it is." Deep breaths, like, function yourself down. Right now in a lot of children's books and TV shows that are especially educational based, they do a lot of, like, the breathing, bringing yourself down, counting from 10 to 1. Refocusing your attention on something else. So, yeah.
Okay. All right.
That's what I got with that. I'm not a
No,
mental
that's
health
actually like
professional.
no, that's good. No, I mean like I was gonna, I don't know. Like I feel like the closest thing I've ever had to one, if I've had one, was I had like one really big freak out day during the pandemic where I just like kind of lost function in a way that sounds similar to what you've experienced, but like I obviously have not had them in any sort of like the same frequency or I think probably even severity. So that's actually interesting to hear because that's like one of the things that I was wondering about coming out of reading the comic is like, is this like, is this realistic? Is this like how quote unquote treatment or lack thereof like would go? Like, what is, I don't know. So with Nora's
Yeah.
story and with, I'm trying to think, I think Lily's a little bit too. Like, I felt like there was a little bit of a lack of resolution to kind of their, like both of their side plots in a way that I don't think it super detracted from the book, but it kind of left me just
No,
wondering, like, well,
what
what's happening
what
next?
else?
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, and then you also have the same sort of thing with Iris's story, right? So we know that there's something going on with Iris's dad, I believe
Hmm.
is the relation. And it seems like it has been going on for a while, but we're not really fully aware of what it is. And I had been looking to see, like, did she ever do a follow-up? Did she ever do anything more with these characters? Because that's what I'd be interested in seeing. Seeing a little bit more of these three girls and seeing, like, where does their story go next, or even a back burner. Um, but then there was even a few, like, of the other girls that came to supper club that it'd be kind of fun to just learn more about. Not that it's like bad or anything. Because like with Lily, it seems like her and her mom start to have a better relationship after she confides in her mom about some stupid stuff with the boy.
Hmm.
Um, and then like Iris and Lily have their fallout and then kind of their get back together. But it's not so much about what happened to the girls in the past, it's the story of them connecting and
Yeah,
what
and
goes through their senior
with
year too.
I was talking about this with Kat last night, and she made basically the same comment to me of like, because Kat was actually the one who read this book first in our house. She just like randomly checked it out from the library once, like
Oh,
sometime earlier this year, and she had read it, and I didn't get to it before she returned it. So I was talking with Kat about it a little bit last night, and I was like, well, it wasn't like satisfying closure, and she's like, well, it's not really about that. It's more about like the girls' relationships with each other. And I was like, well, you're right, but also
I want
still
this.
don't
I
feel
want to
like
know.
it's satisfying.
You're like, I just want
Yeah.
more of these girls. And I think it is because they're relatable
Yeah, I mean,
to
it's not a
us.
bad problem to have. Like, anytime you're like, I wish there had been more of this, like, that means the book's doing its job. Like, I didn't, like, set it down, right? Like, I wanted more book, and that's not
Yeah. And
awful.
like, I searched to see if she did more or if she had any that she was thinking about coming out with or specifically about these characters. But again, this was released in they graduate in 2021, is that right?
Yeah, which
Yeah,
is,
so
like, another thing that I was like, wait a minute, this is set in 2020? This story couldn't exist. And it's like, I would just hand wave that. That's fine.
yeah, it's the what would have happened
Yeah, if it was
if it could.
a normal year, yeah.
Yeah.
Turns out all of them would be having panic attacks. Yay.
Oh my goodness,
Yay.
right? What are your thoughts, Patrick?
Yeah, I enjoyed it. I thought it was a pretty, I mean, it's a good, simple story. It's a slice of life. It doesn't need to go crazy. It's just about these girls struggling with senior year and how to stay friends when everything is changing,
Yeah.
which which it did. I think the one thing I was a little more surprised about is that the food wasn't as a
Prevalent?
focus.
Yeah, you're like in my brain right now.
It
Because
just
I
like
was
it,
like,
in
oh
the
yeah, it's a
beginning, it
good
was all
comic. It's
about the
good for what
food.
it is. I was like kind of hoping
Yeah,
for a bit more food stuff. Like there was like
I wanted
the
more food.
cool. So part of so Kat had read it. She was like, yeah, it was good. And then I had read the preview, and the preview has the like Italian cookies like
Yeah.
montage scene in it, and I was like, "Oh, cool! I love scenes like that where they're like cooking stuff and kind of describing what they're doing and hanging
Yeah.
out." That's like one of 2 times it happens in the entire book.
Yeah.
It's like,
Yeah,
It
Nora
only
explains why it's
oh.
important and like what she feels about it, and like, oh, this is great. So each of them are going to bring something that they're
Yeah, we're gonna
like
get like one of these
connected
for
to.
each of the main characters. Sweet, that'll be no, we don't.
Not
Like
so
we actually
much.
kind of get one for one of the side characters. Like I don't remember
Yeah.
the other 3 girls who
Um,
show up, but like
yeah,
they're
no,
making
it's
a
just
mofongo.
just
Yeah,
this random girl. And I don't even know if they tell us her name.
yeah. That's my problem. Is that I had a hard time. The side characters kept popping, and was like, okay, who is this? Who is this person that is
Yeah,
now?
the other 3 girls were not super necessary. I mean, contributed, but like the book's definitely not about them, right? Like
No.
Yeah, and like,
The
is Supper Club just like a get together just to stay connected socially? Because if this is actually a school club, how are they getting any kind of extracurricular credits
I
for this?
oh my
so
dude, it's just like anime club. Like they go through the thing of like different clubs, and it's like if anime club can be a club, we hang out and
How
eat
dare
meat.
you?
Also,
Anime is an
also a
art.
valid club. So is cooking, Pat. Come on.
well, and they don't hang out at school with it. And at first they're like, "Oh, we need it for us 3." And then they're like, "Okay, I'll tell the other
I'll
girls."
invite my 3 other friends.
And but the 3 other friends don't mean anything.
I mean,
Like
they do factor in every once in a while. The girl
yeah.
whose name I can't remember who makes Mofongo has one of my favorite lines slash scenes in the book where she shows
I
up and is like, "If I wanted my plantains to be oversalted, I would
Oof.
have oversalted them." I
I
do really
think
like that bit.
her
There's
name
some
is
good cartooning in there.
Yeah,
Izzy, I think when I was searching.
I
I think her
believe
name is
you.
sounds
Izzy.
right.
Whereas like the clarinet boy who is actually an oboe. He has an oboe, but he's talking to her.
Sebastian.
Yeah, his name
Sebastian.
is Sebastian.
He's
Like, I
the
Sebastian
remember
is
whose
that.
name I
actually the
remember.
best character in the comics, so I'm a
Is
Sebastian's
he?
pretty
Sebastian
good.
stan. Yeah,
Oh, you're Sebastian Stan?
I am.
Wow, I loved you in Winter Soldier.
Thank you.
Your metal arm was so great.
Yeah, more food. It is interesting they tossed in the recipes in the back. It's like
Yeah.
their focus was a little, I don't know, unfocused, I guess. I don't know.
Yeah.
Yeah. I love that they
Although,
go to Comic-Con and they're dressed up as Zelda characters.
I did like that.
are they Zelda
That whole
characters? I
thing,
don't know enough about Zelda
Yeah.
to
it's
know that.
Tingle. She's dressed up as Tingle.
Yeah.
I don't know
So
who that is,
Tingle,
Pat.
he's
Wow.
a merchant
It's a
mostly.
reoccurring comedic character in the
Yeah.
Legend of Zelda series.
Which one
And
of
then
them is the little annoying fairy thing?
none of them were dressed up as that.
Yeah, none of them were.
But Nora's the one dressed up as Tingle, right?
Yeah.
That's
Yeah.
and then they're dressed
The
up
joke
as
line about the nosebleed and
yeah.
the animator's like, oh, told you it imitates real life.
True.
I don't know if the authors realize what nosebleeding is like saying in animes, but I always thought it was they got horny and therefore got a nosebleed.
Oh, it definitely
Yeah.
is.
Okay, so
I
don't
think
know.
I think it's maybe a slight undertone because there is other, like, if you search about this, there is talks about LGBTQ plus being a part of this.
Oh, you think Nora might have feelings for what's her name?
Iris,
Iris, thank you.
Hmm.
maybe?
I
She
did
did
not
I
say
get
that
that vibe.
she got excited.
Yeah.
So maybe they know exactly what nosebleeds mean. I'm sorry.
So like, cause I don't remember any of this being like very distinctly like LGBTQ plus, but also like I did read Wolf Pitch right after this, and that and the other one, both of the other 2 I read were very deeply LGBTQ plus. Did I get every single one? I hope
Got
I
a
got
plus
every
in there.
letter.
I think that covers it.
Okay.
Yeah, the plus.
Yeah.
The
I think
plus
that's a
covers
catch-all at the end. Yeah.
Yeah. So
LGBTQAAI. I don't
IA,
know. It just
yeah.
keeps going.
LGBTQIA, I've heard before, but yeah,
I
you're
know
fine.
that there's been additional parts put on to include in that phrasing.
Yeah.
So
Oh yeah. No, I used to like when I wrote for the slang website that I used to write for, like there literally was one that went out to like 12 or 13 letters.
Too
Yeah.
much. It's too much.
I don't I mean, I'm not going to be here saying it's too much because that's trying to get people excluded from an acronym and I don't care about
No,
that.
I
Like,
mean,
Well-
at some
the
point, I
acronym.
mean, come on.
I
But
will
also,
say,
yeah, at some point it's like a real word you're trying to pronounce. It's not an acronym anymore.
yeah,
I
and I
don't know.
mean, it also, like, in education, everything is put down to an acronym of some sort or, like, initials to mean something. So, like, you have your SLO, PPG, IEPs.
I mean, that's just the weird, super
Oh
specialized
my
hyper
gosh, no.
information age we live in, but
There's just
that's a
so
different
many.
podcast.
But you know what I mean? Like, that's also where my brain goes. It's like, what am I trying to include
What
in
does this
this?
one mean? Yeah.
Yeah. But, like, also, Lily's the only one that has some sort of romantic storyline, and I
Sure.
put romantic very
In
lightly.
quotes, yeah.
I mean, there's
Yeah.
that scene where the three of them see a couple at school like hugging, and Nora says "ew,"
Yeah.
and I think Iris is also sort of put off by it. So that may also have been a hint that the
I f-
heteronormative relationship
I
was sort of skeeving them out. I don't know.
I also feel like there was an auxiliary friend that made mention about, like, a same-sex couple, but
Don't
I
recall such
I
things.
say I don't
and
remember that.
and, you know, I could also possibly be merging
The 3
the
books you read.
others. The other 2 had very, very clear same-sex
Yeah.
pairings.
Yeah, I feel like if you find that in here, you're reading into it, but I don't know. That's fine.
I
People
think it
read
was
into
more
things.
like, yeah, read into it or subtle hints. Like, maybe one of the girls was like, "Your butt looks good," or something, I don't know, but when I'm
Classic,
looking, I can't find.
Classic.
Yeah, you know,
classic tell right there.
that's what I always say.
Should we talk about the fact that the book is funny? Because that's a thing that, like, so I was kind of having the same feeling as Pat was describing earlier. I was like, yeah, this is like, it's a good book. Like, it's a good example of the kind of story it is. And if you want one of those, this is that. I was hoping for some more food stuff to kind of like differentiate it. Like, that's what I kind of thought was going to be the factor that, like,
Set it
made it
apart
stand
from
out.
other
And
things,
it
yeah.
didn't really happen. It's like, oh, that's kind of disappointing, but like it's still a good book and it's like, well, what did I like about it? It's a really funny book. Like I will give it that. Like there's the sequence early on where they're describing why they don't go to sports games and it's just
Yeah.
Lily like
Lily
getting hit in
getting
the face with
yes.
ball after ball after ball. And
Like,
then
everything.
there's like a nice callback to it when Nora's having her panic attack and like one of the high school jock guys has a football and Lily's like, "Don't you dare! No!"
Yeah.
So like it's a smart book in that way. There's like a decent amount of callbacks. There's one where the first
Or, like,
supper club, Nora's
yeah,
like,
they show up with nothing, and she's
yeah,
like,
like Nora's
"Really?"
like, I'm surrounded by mediocrity, and then when Iris has her like fail graduation party that she's really mean about and like kicks all of her friends
Yeah,
out
I
for no
was like,
reason.
Yeah.
come on, you invited them. You didn't say cook a thing.
She
Yeah.
did, didn't she? I think she did.
She said bring food, I think.
Yeah, and I
Mm,
think what she hoped was that it was going to be
A
yeah.
supper club.
measure
Yeah.
up, yeah.
Yeah.
Hang on, now I'm looking back at the text. Oh yeah, it does just say bring your own food. Yeah, that's on her then.
Like
Honestly,
Yeah.
chips, and
teenagers
you
get a
got
teenager.
muffins. That's a step above of what I would expect. So
But like she does the same thing where she's like, I'm surrounded by mediocrity. And like while we're on Iris and the concept of ugh teenagers, the bit where she's
the
just kicking around in the
sprinklers.
soccer field and the janitor's just like, I gotta not janitor, sorry, like yards keeper or whatever is like, I
Groundskeeper.
gotta
Yeah.
like I gotta water this. And she's like, fine, put me out of my misery. Drown
Yeah.
me in the waters of the sprinklers. He's just like
Teenagers.
Yeah. Right.
So it's definitely like I think that is something it has going for it is that it's a
It is a
very
charming comic
humorous book, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I'll say, and like even when like she then makes the cookies and brings them, And then she's like, I thought that I could do this and I could make something and I could have a distraction. And then um like Iris says, I'm sorry, I messed up. And then like she opens and Nora's like, yeah, you did.
Nora's just like, those are so bad. Yeah.
They're just so ugly. Just like, what the
They
hell,
are
Nora?
like they are such teenagers in this book also in a way that feels authentic too, of just like kind
Yeah.
of being dicks to each other for no reason. But
Yeah.
in a
Or
friendly way for the most part.
like there's you have an issue, you're upset, you don't talk to each other about it.
Yeah, you just
Um,
overreact. You're out of the supper club, Suzanne. You can't be on the podcast anymore.
yeah. Or like the way that like Lily interacted with her mom too. Um, it was something very similar that I saw, not in myself. I was not the Lily with my mom. I was the Lily like with the aftermath with my mom. Like I would talk to my mom about many, many things. But Lily's storyline of like, kind of going against what her mom was asking of her or like the rules kind of set aside is very much what my younger sister did in high school. And then when everything went wrong, she finally like went to my mom. And that is something that happens with quite a few teenage girls, unfortunately. They think their mom's the enemy for a while, and then they realize their mom is not. So that's something from a female perspective that men may not have.
Oh no, I still don't listen to my parents, so it's fine. There was one time, oh, this was in college actually, because like I was, I had decided I was gonna move in with Kat the next semester of college, and I told my mom, and she's like, "You didn't want to talk to me about that first?" I was like, "I knew what you would say." I did it anyway. I don't know if that's actually what she would have said. She
Such
would
a
have basically
rebel.
said, "Be careful," yeah. So,
Yeah. I think sometimes it's much more likely that, and this may be a stereotype,
Hmm.
it's much more likely that girls will discuss many things with their moms or their dads, and gentlemen don't tend to as much. But that could also just be from the fact that I have 3 sisters, and that's what happens is
I
that
was gonna say, I think
we
it depends on
talk.
the kid. I don't know. Again, I don't feel like I have a good enough grasp of the entirety of the world to make a 60/40, 50/50, whatever
Right.
breakdown there, but I
So,
think people like lots of people just have different relationships with their parents also.
yeah.
Like I will never have the Gilmore Girls relationship with my parents, and that's completely fine. Like that's just not what we do. Like we have a good relationship. I really like them. I love them. That's not we're not going out together to like rag on, I don't know, or like whatever they do at Gilmore Girls. I've seen like 2
Oh,
episodes.
it depends on what season of Gilmore Girls you're watching, Matt. I love Gilmore Girls, by the way.
Talking
Back
about
to
I was gonna
Supper
say,
Club.
talking about girl-specific things, can we talk about the Shark Week sequence? Because I thought that was really funny also.
And like there's this random kid is there and they're like, yeah, we turn into sharks. And that's like another thing, like kind of
Oh, this
body
is at the beach.
positive. Yeah, they're at the beach.
Yeah.
And there's like
Uh,
just this little boy who just like
Yeah.
appears and he like they're just pretending or like they're talking about why Iris is being the way she is. And
oh, that's
then
Yeah,
right.
they like
they're talking
use
about their periods, but they're not quite talking like, they're not saying the word period, which there isn't pages from the initial pitch on Jackie Morrow's website, which I'll put in the show notes, and they definitely do say the word period in the pitch, so I'm wondering if that's a thing that they I'm wondering if that was a choice to change or a you gotta change this to make it young adult thing, or I don't know. It's kinda
they
weird,
I
but
they
hope not.
may
I'm
have
really
they
sad.
may have changed it to bring humor in
I mean,
because
also, yeah, like the Shark Week thing then leads to like the great bit, so it's also possible that they just
yeah.
changed it to make the bit better. It could
And
be anything.
it is in the middle of a heavy part, right? Because this one starts with like your focus is on Iris and she's literally dragging herself out of bed, pretending everything's okay, getting in the car to get her friends for a fun day, and she has no energy to even pretend that she's okay, right?
Yeah.
And so like us as the audience knows this, but Lily and Nora don't really know. Like they know something's wrong that she's not telling them. And so you need some sort of breath of fresh air, right? That's what makes the best dramas is having a little bit of laughter brought in some way
Yeah, a little bit
to
of levity.
because you get it right before she then sees like the dad and the little girl and you know one of the
Yeah.
outbursts that they have. So
I think there's a lot of like good cartooning throughout that sequence also of like different facial expressions. Like I like Lily like becoming the shark initially. I also like
yeah,
I think um Iris is kind of like sad rage or whatever. I don't know how to describe it exactly is like also drawn really
yeah.
well. I think
Well, and
facial
then
expressions are done pretty well throughout.
the very end of that sequence where she says like I feel like I'm drowning, like this two-page set is really pretty because like it has the water going up over her face and then in the background it has like picture of medical, picture of happy, picture of medical, happy, medical, happy. Like and it just gives you a really like good idea of what is going through her head, right?
Yeah.
I think it's just really cool. And then,
Yeah,
like, she's
it's a good
actually
sequence.
literally drowning after that too.
Yeah.
And then they find the, glowing photoplankton, right? And they're like,
Yeah,
"Look."
and put their faces in the sand and write the year 2020, and that's when I
Yep,
was like, "Wait, no."
yeah. So, yeah, and then they make pie, but we don't get to see them making pie.
Don't get to see them making pie. We don't really get to see them making
More
mac and
food.
cheese, even though that's one of the recipes in the
More
back of the
food.
book. Don't get to see
Yeah.
the braised short ribs, I think, that are in the back of the book either.
Lasagna.
Yeah, we see the lasagna finished, but we don't get to see it being made.
Yeah, I don't get to actually see much of anything being made.
Yeah. I think that's odd, the fact that it's marketed as like, even when you read, like, the flavor, food is the first thing that says, right? Food, friendship, and drama. Like,
Yeah,
they
and the food
really
feels like s so significantly secondary, I guess, which, like,
yeah.
it's okay, but, like, I
And
was
they even
expecting
say,
more.
"A foodie-infused friendship drama that equal parts The Baby-Sitters Club," which I guess I see some of that. You guys probably didn't read much Baby-Sitters Club, right?
Nope.
So, the Babysitters Club, I think the
Uh-oh.
part of the reason that's mentioned here is because like, those graphic novels, like, that have been done
That
recently
they
have been, like,
did, yeah.
super huge, yeah.
So they're
My
trying to
niece
get
reads
draw that
those.
in.
Yeah, so you're,
Okay.
like, picking up that audience a little bit, like, maybe they're aging into it at this point? I don't
Maybe.
know.
Well, and then there's also those other, like, graphic novels, like The Smile and a few other ones that
Oh,
maybe they're
yes.
trying to
I
tie into
I have bought
too.
all of these for my niece. So
Yeah.
many.
So,
Oh,
maybe that yeah. 'Cause, like, I think about, like, the Babysitter Club that I read. I read, like, the novels, and then I watched, like, the movie from the
yeah, from, like,
90s.
when we were kids, yeah.
Yeah, and then I did even watch, like, the reboot of The Babysitters Club that Netflix did, like 6 years ago,
Oh, I
and
didn't
then
know
they
about that.
canceled it. Yeah, they canceled it after 1 season, um, because, that's what Netflix does for things that are actually good, like Dead Boy Detective Agency.
Yeah, I'm kinda, like, wondering because I was reading through some of, um, Jackie Morrow's, like, other comics on her website because I don't think, as far as I could tell, that she has, like, another whole book out there. I could be wrong, but I couldn't find anything. I searched
I
around a little bit.
think there was, like, only one more thing. Yeah, so Netflix did The Babysitters Club, sorry, there was 2
No worries.
seasons, 2020.
All
Alicia
good things, Susie.
Silverstone, who was Cher Horowitz from Clueless, played one of the main moms, so, you know.
Oh no, we're getting old.
Ooh, Alexa and Katie, that's a good one. That was a good one. That has 4 seasons. Yeah, when I tried to look up anything about her, there wasn't a lot to find.
Yeah, but so she's got a website and there are like some short comics on there which were also good. And like between this and those, I would be one of the discussion questions like in the discussion guide we have is like, would you like read the next volume of this story? Or like, have you read something else by this author? And I don't know if there is anything else really besides some of the shorter work that's online. But I would, and like I'd be really interested to see something that's like not a young adult thing. Because I think
Yeah,
like bringing this vibe to like even a like a college level potentially would be
would
kind of
be
cool.
interesting.
Yeah.
One of her, like, smaller comics oh, okay, Adventure Time sample. I'm like, one of her smaller comics looks very Adventure Timey, and it's based off of Adventure Time.
Yeah, like in one of the interviews I was reading, she says that like that's definitely an influence, so that makes sense.
Yeah. And so, like, this one here, like, her step-by-step one, I think is really pretty, like, visually. It's the one that I don't know if you looked at it, but it's the one that ends with, like, all the fireflies around the girl.
I think I did. Yeah, yep. Yeah, I like
Yeah.
that one.
So, like, I would and, like, I searched you and I both searched to say, like, is there something else that she's done that I can look into?
The one just below that on the site, and I'll put the site in the show notes so we're not just goofing off here talking about it. The one below that is called New York, and I really liked that
Yeah.
one also. And that's where I was like, yeah, something that's like even like young professional age too, with like kind of the same vibes and same-ish style. Like she does the same thing in this one with music that she did in
Mhm.
Supper Club too, where like the musical notes and scales are all like
Yeah,
playing in the
going
background
around.
and like
Yeah.
kind of Calvin and Hobbesy. I really like that. That's a good trick. That's a good way to do
Yeah.
music in comics.
I also appreciate how, like, her technology is used in it, right? So, like, text messages, like, we get to see, like, the little screens, but it's not just like a page of text messages back and forth, which you
Yeah.
sometimes get in more modern trying to be comics or
Yeah.
books, right?
Yeah, it just sort of pops up as like a semi-normal caption or lettering balloon, but like
Mm.
looks like a text message thread.
I would definitely be interested in trying to find more or see if she's done more, but maybe she has, like, a slow burn when she comes to making something.
I mean, it takes a lot of work to put out a comic, especially if you're like
Doing it by yourself, right?
writing it, drawing it. I think mostly coloring it from what I could tell. Like
Yeah.
Ellie Pipitone's listed first for the colors here, but in the interview I read, Jackie said she was coloring it mostly, so I'm not sure. I don't know what the breakdown on that is, but like if you're basically doing everything, and like an image book too is like you're picking what the paper stock is, and like you're like figuring out how you like I don't know. There's a lot that goes into a book, so
Yeah.
it it takes a lot of effort. No
And
shame on one in every like X amount of years or whatever, because it's a lot.
yeah, which I just hope she is able to do more.
Yeah,
Is it
maybe.
weird that they never actually show the girls doing a hot pot, but it's like all over the place as like the main, like the cover of
Imagery?
it
The
is
cover.
doing a hot pot. And then when Nora's like thinking about what do I think about when I squeeze this stone that cures my anxiety? It's having a hot pot with all my friends. When did that happen? It was off screen.
It was in a deleted
In her
scene.
Yeah.
mind.
I just thought it was strange that we never actually see them do that. And it's the imagery that's used more than any other food scene. So
Twice, but yeah. The Italian cookies
it's in
pop
the
up
end of the
twice.
book as well.
So yeah, we would read more, Jackie. We would
Yep.
read more.
Jackie, I know you're listening. So,
It's possible. It happens sometimes.
yeah,
Wildly randomly out of the blue.
you never know.
Um, Do we have anything else that we want to say, or should we move on to recommendations?
Patrick, do you got anything else you want to say?
I don't think so.
Sure.
More
Okay.
hot pots.
More hot pots, more food.
More
Yeah,
food.
so aren't more Jackie Morrow comics out there as far as we know, but there are other comics and assorted media out there that you may also like if you like this comic. I have a couple, and I'm going to go first because I
Okay.
have two, and they're broken down into different categories based on what you wanted out of this book. So I think if you're in like the young adult slice of
Wait, I
life,
need to go first before you because I think you're going to take mine.
okay,
Say it at
all
the
right, go
same
Pat.
time on the count of 1, 2, 3.
Okay, cool.
Slumberjane.
If you like the, well, no, okay, that's good. I had Giant Days. Giant Days was my
Giant Days is
recommendation.
also on the list. So I was just like sitting on my couch the other day, and I was like, I can't think of anything. I'm just gonna start Googling. And then I Googled, and I was like, oh, this one. Oh, that one. Oh, this one would be good. Oh, this one would be good too. And
I
then I was
thought of
like,
up all by myself.
I'm so proud of you, Pat. But
Thank
Giant
you.
Days is the last one I put on the list. I think so. Giant Days, same vibe
It's a
ish.
college
A little
version
bit
of
more
this,
manic, but yeah, that's what like stopped me from recommending it is that like it's definitely a step up age wise.
and
So
there's no food whatsoever. So it's got
whereas
that marked against it.
Lumberjanes, I believe, is the same age wise, also kind of has a little bit more manic energy, I think. So we're both kind of leading that way, I think, Pat. And the other kind of like, it's kind of a genre at this point, I don't know, but like comic cookbooks kind of kick ass.
Yeah.
Um, I have one that's how to cook Korean, and like there's just a bunch of like cool Korean recipes laid out step by step in it. It's my go-to recipe for kimchi pancake, which maybe I'll link to the blog post I did about that.
Nice.
But like there's a ramen one that I think Kat used once. There's a couple other ones. Um, they've all looked like they're similar style. I think they're the same publisher and good. The How to Cook Korean one I can definitely recommend. That one is great.
Cool. Yeah, for food stuff, for me, it's not like food is literally the connecting part between this comic and this
Mhm.
recommendation. Dungeon Meshi, it's really good. It's delicious in Dungeon. It had a Netflix anime series that's really awesome, but the manga
Oh.
is also very, very good. So check it out if you like really well illustrated food made from pretty disgusting stuff.
I was gonna say, what is the dungeon food made out of?
Dungeon monsters. But it's really the characters are amazing. The world building is great, and I highly recommend it if you like
I
fantasy
I
dungeon
say
crawler stuff.
I feel like I've seen that and we
It's all
thought
over the place.
about
Yeah,
yeah, we thought about, like, giving it a watch, but I don't think we've ever given it a watch.
you should. It's good, and also read it because it's also good.
Yeah. When it comes to, like, reading comics and stuff like that, I don't know if I have any recommendations. Um, I wish I had more recommendations, but it is sometimes difficult for me to read, um,
I need
and keep
time.
track. Yeah, right? Um, I mean, I read all 3 within a day or 2 because they are so short.
Sure.
If you do like relationships between people and them having something that brings them together, like Wolf Pitch does focus more on the relationship of the characters. If you do like girls coming together, working through times of their lives in high school, and you like that, the show Alexa and Katie on Netflix, I really enjoyed watching for that reason. The 2 main characters and how they work through they start off in their freshman year and that I think they got through senior year. Um, Katie has similar things with anxiety attacks and working through anxiety. Alexa is diagnosed, or do I have him flipped? I think it's
Don't know,
Alexa who's
Suzanne.
diagnosed.
You're asking the wrong
Um,
person.
yeah, but like the star of the series is um, one of the girls getting diagnosed with leukemia and having to change everything she has to do and working through like how her high school year is going to change, how her friendships are going to change. Does it mean that she'll actually be able to finish high school? She was like the jockey one and she can't do sports. And so I just like that as like a coming of age story between girls and their friendship and how it changes when they're trying to stay together, but the world is pushing them apart. You know, um, obviously Babysitter Girls or the Babysitters Club if you like that kind of stuff too. But yeah, I don't know if I have any other recommendation. Gilmore Girls, stick with it. Yeah.
There you go.
Watch up to season 4. After Rory goes to college, it gets way worse. Rory is an awful human.
She really is.
She is. Once she goes to college, like that's what you get for going
Wheels
to
come
Ivy
off.
League schools.
I think that last tangent will do it for this month's discussion of Supper Club. As always, if you want to get in touch with Pat or myself, you can email us at waitingonthetrade@gmail.com. You can also find more comics-related goodness at mattreadscomics.com. Suzanne, thank you for coming on. This was fun. I enjoyed
Yeah.
the tangents. I enjoyed the book. I always appreciate you having on the podcast. Having you on the podcast. Oh my God, words. It's late.
Only 9:20.
It's late for me, man. I go to bed at 9:30.
I
Oh my
usually go to bed
gosh.
at like 9, so
Sorry, we should get you tucked into bed, you guys. We should call it here.